Provoe.
Welcome back to the Provian Roadmap, an introduction to self-mastery. Today, we're diving into the connection between boundaries and living authentically. The topic is boundaries and authenticity. Boundaries are essential for protecting your energy, values, and well-being. Let's explore how setting healthy boundaries helps you embrace your most authentic self. What are boundaries? Boundaries are the physical, emotional, and mental limits you set to protect your energy and values. They help you stay true to yourself while fostering respect in your relationships. Boundaries are the limits you set to protect your emotional, physical, and mental space. Why boundaries are important? Boundaries protect your energy, reduce stress, and promote healthy relationships. Boundaries are crucial for preserving your energy and mental health. They ensure your actions and relationships remain aligned with your values, helping you live authentically while fostering mutual respect.
So let's talk about challenges of setting boundaries. We have fear of rejection, guilt, and people pleasing. These can make boundary setting difficult. How many times have you tried to call someone out for misbehaving? How many times have you tried to get someone to change a behavior toward you? But just to save their face or to keep the peace, quote unquote, you permit them to go on disrespecting you. You permit them to go on treating you poorly, just so their sense of ego doesn't get hampered by your correction. So that people-pleasing tendency tends to stop us from setting the appropriate boundaries. I found myself in situations where I've had to call people out when they behave in a rude manner in a public setting. I call them out separately and I tell them, hey, what you did such and such time made me feel such and such type of way, and set a kind of tone or impression that is not palatable to how I want to be perceived. It is difficult to get through those conversations, but I believe those conversations are necessary for strengthening relationships. The boundaries you set help people behave better, both to themselves and to you. If you refuse to accept disrespect, I believe you'd be teaching those who deal with you how to respect themselves as well. Okay? So it's a good idea to set boundaries. Fear of rejection. Many people feel if I set this boundary, this person might feel if I don't allow them, take me for granted. They might find it difficult communicating with me because that's the only way they know how to be free and friendly and spontaneous. So the fear of being rejected, that, if I don't let this person disrespect me, I might not be accepted. I'll give you an example. A lady who tried to be close to me. Let me put it that way. So we grew close a bit, and then we got into conversation talking about relationships, the kind of relationships she'd like to have with her man. And she went as far as saying any man who wouldn't allow her, be herself, she wouldn't like to be with such a man. So upon further inquiry, being herself meant she being free enough to joke around with the guy. Jokes like calling him big head, or you're mad, or you're crazy, so to speak. And I told her, wow, I love that she is open about her expectations in a relationship. But I am not one to find myself in a relationship where my significant other feels okay, comfortable, being disrespectful, jokingly or seriously. I respect myself, and I wouldn't want anyone, under any circumstance, joking or not, to disrespect me. So that boundary for me is a non-negotiable, and for that I began to like give her some space because I realized we're not a good fit. Okay. So the fear of rejection shouldn't stop you from placing a boundary. It should help you fine-tune your network to have only the sort of people who you value, who appreciate your core values. Okay? Guilt stops us from enforcing boundaries because we feel, oh, maybe they might feel I'm too hard on them. Or you might feel, oh, maybe they don't have the amount of discipline and self-control that I have. So if I make them feel bad for disrespecting me, maybe they'll feel I'm difficult to hang around, or you know that guilt of, oh, maybe I'm going to be seen as uptight, or oh, maybe I shouldn't have called her out like that. I shouldn't have called him out like that. I shouldn't have stopped him from misbehaving. There's a very popular clip that went viral of a popular musician trying to grope or hug from behind another musician who he collaborated with. Those of you who are Nigerian will know who I'm talking about. And there are a lot of people on the comment sections on different social media pages where this clip went viral. And a lot of people were saying, oh, she shouldn't have, stopped him from groping her. That was her boundary she was setting. Even though it was on a stage during a performance, she didn't allow him go along with it and then speak about it later. She stopped him there and then. And then a lot of people are like, oh no, that's disrespectful. That's she being ungrateful. He gave her such a great opportunity. Why didn't she allow him just, play along and go on with the performance? So a lot of people could want to guilt trip you into not setting boundaries. But the point of this is, boundaries are necessary. It gives people a heads up on how to treat you, what's a good to go and what's a no-go, okay? Your job is to communicate clearly. How to set boundaries. 1, know your limits. Just like this young lady knew her limits and didn't permit him to go beyond the limit, even though he was on a world stage. Know your limits, even in a personal area. Know your limits. How far is too far? What is acceptable, non-acceptable, negotiable, non-negotiable? How far is too far? You need to know your limits. Don't allow people push your buttons and then you go back home feeling bad and sore and feeling like you let yourself down. I'd rather you let them down by, making them know that their standards and self-worth is too low to permit themselves to go through certain behaviors, okay? Then you feel bad for upholding your standards. It's your life. So know your limits and ensure you communicate it. Don't be partisan. Don't set limits for one person and leave the limits lower for another person. If you don't hug, don't choose a day when, okay, it's fair weather here, let's hug. Or choose a person and say, hey, it's okay, I could hug you, but I won't hug that person. You become partisan and it becomes offensive, so to speak. So if your limits are set, except it's within certain parameters. Okay, if I know you enough, I can give you a hug. Or if I don't know you too well, I'm not going to allow myself to have physical contact with you. These are all boundaries you could set, but ensure that you know what your limits are. That's the first step to setting boundaries. Number 2, communicate clearly. Like I said, don't give mixed signals. Don't have a boundary on Tuesdays and they don't apply on Fridays. Don't have a boundary when you are feeling good, and when you are feeling off the weather, you become irritable. Communicate clearly and ensure you stick to whatever you make people know is your boundary, because people are supposed to be taught on how to treat you. Number 3, be consistent. Like I said, don't be on and off. If your boundary is A today, next year it should be A. It shouldn't move to C because the year has changed or the time has changed. It shouldn't change according to how you feel. Be consistent with your boundaries so people can have a form of understanding of who they are dealing with. Okay?
So let's take an exercise. Identify and set boundaries. 1. Write down one area where you need a boundary. 2. Create a plan to communicate it clearly. I don't care how long it's been in the relationship and how much you've already been taken for granted. It's never too late to make a change. Take a stand. It could be a bully, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be a boss. Determine what you are no longer gonna take. Make up your mind to summon the courage to communicate to this person in your life that, hey, I'd like us to have a talk. I don't really feel valued in my relationship with you when you do this, or when you say this, or when you treat me this type of way. Identify one area of your life where you need to set this kind of boundary, whether it's with your time, energy, or emotions. Then write a plan to communicate it clearly. Practice being firm but respectful. People only value those who respect themselves. You can't be valued when you allow yourself go. But from the way you portray yourself, the way you speak, the way you look, the way you act in public, the amount of thought you put into being is directly reciprocal to the amount of thoughtfulness people put into dealing with you.
Reflection question, baby. Where in your life do you need stronger boundaries? You alone know yourself and know the values, the core values with which you go through life. You know what you want out of life. No one else knows. So you need to sit with yourself and come up with all the nooks and crannies of your values and negotiables and non-negotiables, and find out how to negotiate them into your relationships with the world, so people don't keep crossing your lines, your red lines and your danger zones, if you know what I mean. Okay? So reflect. Where in your life do you need stronger boundaries?
So let's recap boundaries. Setting healthy boundaries and its importance for living an authentic life, which we all want to do. If you're not living an authentic life, I don't know what you're doing. You know? Key takeaways. Boundaries are limits you set to protect your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. No one's going to do that for you, man. It's up to you to protect your mental space, your inner world, your heaven, your universe. You protect it and you expose it depending on how much knowledge you have on the subject of boundary setting. You would have to cultivate that knowingness of how much is too much, how far is too far. You know, I set some boundaries for some of my colleagues, you know, depending on their level of self-awareness. Some of them, I don't say anything to them because in the past they have proven to be dubious. Some lie to protect themselves and pass the buck. Some, you know, cheat the system and try to get you involved. You know, some try to smear your name with propaganda and lies. These are all natural human tendencies, but with me, I make sure from the lowest to the highest, anyone dealing with me has to come correct with their peak consciousness. You can't be dealing with me or talking to me and you're going unconscious and saying things unconsciously or doing things unconsciously. In different departments, I hear whenever something has to do with me or related to my production department, which I handle in Wazobia Info, I hear this is going to the production department. Take special care to ensure you have crossed the T's and dotted the I's, because he doesn't like back and forths. He likes things being done properly. That's the undertone, okay? So people know me for one of my boundaries. I don't do back and forths in my production. Get your scripts right before you come to the studio. Prepare and rehearse your scripts. You don't come to the studio and begin to rehearse with my time, on my own time. These are boundaries I've set, and over the years they have adjusted and they act accordingly. Boundaries are responsible for how well people treat you, how well people treat themselves relative to how they treat you. You would respect yourself when I force you to respect me. You would respect me when I respect myself. Are you understanding? It's all connected. So another takeaway. Self-awareness is crucial for understanding your true self. If you don't understand your true self, how would you communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively? It takes me knowing who I am and being grounded in who I am to know how I ought to be treated. For me to be able to communicate my boundaries clearly and assertively, I have to be self-aware. Healthy boundaries promote self-respect and self-care. So you have to understand that for you to respect and care for yourself, those boundaries have to be up. You have to be protective of your energy. You deserve it. You need it. You can't do without it. Okay? Practice self-compassion when enforcing boundaries. It is out of the love and compassion you have for yourself that you set the boundaries with which you deal with the external world. If you have compassion and love your peace of mind and your energy, and you want to preserve the condition of heaven on earth, all Provians are meant to be in heaven on earth, heaven within you, on earth in peace and harmony, not chaos. So practice self-compassion when enforcing boundaries. So you're not too hard on yourself and you're not too hard on people either. But there has to be a balance. Another takeaway. Be consistent in maintaining your boundaries. Don't be like the wind, changing left and right. When your yes is your yes, people tend to adjust. When your no is your no, people tend to adjust accordingly. Okay? Action step. Identify areas where you need to set stronger boundaries. You know your life. You know where you are flopping. You know what could be better. You know how much improvement is needed. You know how far you need to go to respect yourself enough to deserve the amount of respect you want to command from the world. You know yourself. Identify areas where you need to set stronger boundaries. It could be your relationships. It could be your family. For example, I have certain people blocked on WhatsApp in my family. Very, very close family. I have some people whose numbers I don't answer because whenever they call me and I pick up, it's one drama or the other. Okay? I have certain people who have put in a no contact list. Under no circumstances would I find myself dialing their number. I have some people who I will never allow anywhere near my children. I have some people who, I have placed in a particular place in my life where they have no business being in the know. I have some people who I don't allow follow me on social media. When they follow me, I block them. These are all ways to keep yourself safe from external factors that you have come to conclude are not good for you. Another action step, communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively. You can't be vague. When you have a non-negotiable, it has to be clearly stated as a non-negotiable, not negotiable depending on how I feel or negotiable depending on how I like you. If you don't accept something from person A, ensure it is consistent across board. So clearly and assertively communicate your boundaries with consistency. Another action step, practice self-compassion when enforcing boundaries. Certain people find it difficult to learn in the beginning. Have a bit of self-compassion for yourself when they break your code of conduct or ethics, and then have some compassion on them as well, giving them maybe second chances, third chances, but enforce your boundaries. Okay? Another action step. Be consistent in upholding your boundaries. Consistency is a long-term game. People have to come to know you for a certain value or virtue. You don't cultivate the virtue in a vacuum. You have to ensure that people are consistently seeing you holding up those virtues and values that you proclaim. Last but not the least action step in this series, celebrate your progress in setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. If you're someone who was once walked all over or bullied or talked down on, the day you stood up to that bully or the day you said no more and you saw a change on the external, when you go back home, do a little money dance, do a little celebration. Remind yourself that you're making progress as a human being. You're growing, you're getting better. You're becoming better in negotiating your way through life. Remember, setting boundaries is an act of self-love and self-respect. No one's going to do it for you. If you don't do it, you're failing yourself. You're letting yourself down. Reflection question. What's one boundary you've been hesitant to set and why? As you walk through this exercise, think about a boundary you've been hesitant to set. What's holding you back? How could setting this boundary improve your life? Remember, this is a journey of self-mastery, and every single module we cover is geared towards pushing you one step further to understanding, discovering, and mastering yourself. If you don't understand the things that make you tick, if you can't answer these very, very core vital questions, then you might find it a bit challenging mastering yourself. Okay? So, to take the recap once again, boundaries protect your energy, values, and well-being. They foster authenticity and mutual respect. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and courage. They are not about pushing others away, but creating space for mutual respect and healthier connections. Thank you for joining us. See you tomorrow for Overcoming the Fear of Judgment. Tomorrow we'll explore how to overcome the fear of judgment and embrace the freedom of living without external validation. See you then.